So Tracy, I thought we'd have a chat about the actual workshop that we delivered down here in Hobart.
It was so much fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a really interesting and successful workshop. It worked in a very different way than I thought.
Yeah, I was really pleased to see the response. We had over 30 hairdressers there, all from different salons. It was a great turnout, which I was really excited about. Sitting back in the workshop, Peter, it was really interesting watching the questions that came out from the workshop. Very specific questions around personal injury, and nearly everyone had a story. So I really felt like you were touching on topics that related.
One of the other things that a lot of them gave us feedback about was that they really wanted practical workshops in the long run.
They did. They all turned up in activewear.
I know they did.
They were keen.
Even though we were very specific that it was a demonstration.
Yeah.
And if COVID hadn't come along, we would have definitely been doing some actual workshops. But really, that was the reason that it inspired us to actually film the workshop.
Yes, that's true. So when the time is right, I think everyone is very keen to get back into the studio, and even if it was designed around individual salon groups, I know that the employees would be very interested.
Yeah, I just think that it's a really good way for employers to keep their staff really healthy and safe.
That's right. I remember you asking me a question about whether I felt employees felt supported with reducing injury by their employers. I just don't think employees know what to or not to expect, but it's in everybody's best interest to be proactive, because the effect on the business is going to be of detriment if you've got employees out of work.
And also, even employees that are uncomfortable or in pain, they're not going to be able to be who you want them to be when they're on the floor.
That's so
because they're
true.
struggling.
I agree.
So one of the really interesting things for me was that we were going to use one of your apprentices as the model for the workshop. But what we found was, because she had only been working in the industry for 3 months, she actually didn't have any of the wear and tear on her body yet. So we couldn't use her to demonstrate the things we were talking about.
Yeah.
So we ended up having to look at you and one of your senior stylists to see if we could use you to showcase it. And we ended up focusing on one of your senior stylists, and because I just could not believe the difference in the apprentice and the senior stylist. It was really obvious that the apprentices hadn't had the workload that you guys had and changed their bodies.
That's right, and the hairdressers that came along to the workshop were such a big mix of people that were starting out, assistants, and people that have been in the industry for over 30 years. So yeah, it was great that we could do that comparison so it related to everybody.
And the thing that I love the most about it, especially when I come in here, is that I can see that your stylists are actually implementing some of the tools that we've given them.
Yeah.
Like little things like one of your stylists has a dot on her hairdryer, so every time she looks at a dot, she knows not to lock her knees, or she releases her knees.
That's right.
And I was having a chat with her the other day, and she said it's getting more and more common for her to release her knees, because when she first had the dot, she would look at it like 3 times a shift and wouldn't do it. But now she said she looks at it like 4 or 5 times a blow dry, and it really encourages her to soften her knees and use her muscles instead of her joints.
We also purchased the equipment that you were speaking about in the workshop, because it was literally a handful of very small tools that we can now have on show in our staff area, which is another trigger for them to realise that rolling your shoulders up against the wall or using the ball to roll their feet were simple tools that they could do in their lunch break, which you demonstrated so well throughout the workshop. It was very practical, and I feel from the feedback that not just the employees but the staff took a lot away from it.
Another great workshop that we would really like to develop for hairdressers is one on pelvic floor health.
What a great idea.
I know it sounds a bit strange, but as it's a very predominantly female industry, we're not taught how to look after our pelvic floor until you get pregnant, which...
And you flagged up already, Peter, us hairdressers, we love to push our pelvis forward as well whilst working.
Slouch, which is a lot of downward force on your pelvic floor. And you know, you don't want to be learning about your pelvic floor when you get pregnant and you're trying to work.
No.
So we would really like all young women to learn about pelvic floor health and exercises before they go down that stage, or even if they don't want to. It's such a neglected part of women's health. If you don't have a baby, no one ever talks to you about the pelvic floor. So it'd be great to get it out into the hairdressing industry.
That's a great idea.
It's also very relevant for men, as much as I've just talked about women, for different reasons, but we could do education in both areas.
I love it.
Yeah, it was a great workshop, and I'm really glad that we got to collaborate on this.
Me too.